shake it up. Shaking up the garbage we feed on. Shaking up our wondrous being. Let's begin to reform. Even if just for a moment, to share the cloying and the suffocating skin. Let's shake it up right now. Let's shake it up right now. Let's shake it up right now. Shake it up. Languishing in false lucidity doesn't benefit the greater cause. Driving blind and calling wide.
Good to see you, Jack.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Good to see you, buddy. I can see the neck of a guitar
Good
there,
to
so
see
that's
you,
fantastic. That looks like a bass from here.
And that is, yeah, a good friend who passed left it to me.
Oh, wow.
From
Oh, wow.
the 1980s.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So we have incredible opportunity to share through the Creative Shake-Up podcast today. Somebody wonderful that I've met, and it just seems to be a genuine journey of incredible people that come into your life. And Jack Marchant, it's great to be with you today, Jack, and thank you so much for giving us your time, because I know, like many people, you're a very productive man. How are you doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's good to be here, and thank you for having me on.
Not a problem at all. So I think we live in a world that tries to identify individuals, which is okay, I guess. Sometimes it helps to place what people do. And I think some of the descriptions I'd give, music producer even, sound engineer, musician, creator, writer, are they some reasonable terms?
Yeah, definitely. That is, I'd say that about sums up my music career.
You and what you do, yeah. Well, we'll get more into the you in a moment as opposed to what you do. But share, if you can, please, Jack, to begin with, what's going on for you at the moment? What projects, what type of things are you doing at this moment in time? Apart from talking to us, of course.
Sure. So obviously, yeah, like you sum me up, music producer, engineer, writer, and I've got quite a few projects on at the minute. I work with a guy called Giorgio Music, who writes a lot for mental health. So we're about to go back in the studio and do another single. I've just released, so I've got a release coming out on Friday with a group called the LKG Trio. Now they're a fantastic band, really talented bunch, and and they've they're doing really well. We done their first single last time called Icarus. They got a lot of radio play on BBC and stuff. And
Wow, excellent!
So we've got another single coming out on Friday.
Are they available everywhere? What's the name of the group again? Say the group's name.
They're called the LKG Trio.
The LKG Trio. So if we looked for them, would we find them across the usual platforms that music's found?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. The LKG Trio. And interesting with the gentleman you mentioned earlier as well, Giorgio. Yeah, with
That's
music,
right, yeah.
music for mental health. That's very, very needed, isn't it? And very important. So tell us a little bit more about that. What's happening with that?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, we were friends growing up, and we hadn't spoke for a few years because we had, one of our mutual friends passed away when we were 17, and we got back in touch. He came around my house. I was living in Bromley at the time, and he noticed I had a recording set up, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm a rapper," like, and then we was like, "Oh, well, let's just make a song," like. So we made a quick demo, and we put it out, and yeah, just done really well. Like, these things don't happen a lot, but I think the demo in itself, last time I checked, which was a long time ago, was on about 150,000, and it's probably a lot more now. And yeah, we just started releasing stuff, and he's done really well. He's built a really good community around what he does. People, they really like look to him as, you know, this kind of inspiration. And, he's got a big following. So, I'm sure a lot of people would have heard of him. He's got about 500,000 followers on TikTok now. And, we've got 20 million streams on some of the songs. He's done really well. So, but again, like that started just from him wanting to tell his story and then coming together and thinking about, okay, well, how are we gonna get this into the music and capture
Mm.
like the emotion and what we're trying to tell? Because a lot of people nowadays have these big productions and they're great. I love doing big productions. It pushes you to the limit as a producer, but sometimes you just need to capture the rawness of someone's emotions and what they're telling you. And I think that's a big part of being like a producer and a sound engineer. It's like, someone can give you the ingredients, but then it's down to you. How do you use them to best capture what, or to best make what they're trying to give you?
That's a real insight, Jack. That really, really is. And I tell you what's coming to me in this moment in comparison to what you've just said is photography. Photography. Because with photography, it could be easy to think there's the person or there's the thing, there's the camera, and all the person that with the camera is doing is taking an image of that person. But of course, ultimately, when it's at its best, you're capturing a moment, you're capturing an emotion, a being. And I think just listening to you then, that's why where my brain went to think sometimes people call them songs. They call them songs. But of course, really,
Yeah,
in the fullest sense, in an emotional sense, they're far more. And the other thing I chose as a title for you, Music on the Move, which we'll move on to in a moment, ironically. But
yeah,
I think I'm now also developing that into the thought of music that moves. Because when you capture that emotion,
yeah.
that's what you share with others. And that is a real art. That's not just press and record, is it? Press and record and
No,
that's it. There's far more in that. Far more. That's amazing.
absolutely. Right. I think you're right. I think as a producer, you wear many hats, don't you? And it's not
Mm,
just in terms of making the music. Sometimes you have to be like almost like a therapist to people, and you have to like if they want to tell their story, you have to get the story out of them, and it's not always easy.
mm.
Like, they have to trust you. You have to have sometimes some deep conversations with people, and then that's when you start getting into their story, that's when you can get to really capture what they're trying to pursue in their song and music.
That's beautiful. Capture. Beautiful. That's it. And there is a sonic capture that remains forever. I will never ever, I will never ever get used to the thought of that you are capturing emotion and that's it. It's there. It's there forever. It's
Yeah.
amazing, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. So you like all of us, and I'm very, very interested in sharing with others what people do, but also, of course, importantly, why. And sometimes when you hear of somebody, especially in social media, you look at, let's say, for example, people find Marchant music, people find Jack Marchant, and they think this guy does music production, is a sound engineer, um, looks like things are really, really good, which I'm not saying they're not. But of course, it takes a tremendous journey, and you know where I'm going with this, to reach that point.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'd like you to share as much as you feel comfortable
absolutely.
with some of the things that have led to where you are now. And I think that will be good insight for those that are with us, listening, viewing, to gain a little bit of. I think I'm just going to say it how I thought it. It's not been easy. It's not been easy. So share some things, Jack, that
No,
have presented themselves as challenges in your career.
no. Sure, sure. So I'll start from really my first inspiration, and then we'll go through the big story. But you know, when I was like a young kid, my dad was in a metal band called Pagan Altar, and I used to, you know, I used to see him on the weekends, and but he'd always be rehearsing or gigging with them because they were getting quite popular, sort of in the late '90s and early 2000s, and yeah, I was dragged around numerous studios around London and other places, and I met some really great people, and that was kind of my first really big thing. I was like, oh yeah. So I've been into music really since I was a kid,
Hmm.
and then my mum, she was like, she wasn't a musician, but she just loved the music. She just had a record collection that was just one whole side of the living room wall complete. And
What?
she just put it on. So she's into a lot of classic rock and 80s music, and AC/DC, White Snake, Metallica, like that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then I grew up on that. And then, I had a bit of a, troubled childhood, I'd say, you know. So
What?
it's
What
like
kind of age? What
your
kind of
parents,
age?
like,
What kind of age, Jack, were you when you?
oh, this was going on,
Yeah.
this was going on since I was again a young kid, ever since I can remember. But it's only when you get to a certain age that you start realizing actually what it
Yeah. Good
is.
point.
And yeah, yeah. And so there was my mum, my stepdad, and then my biological dad. So my biological dad was the one who was in the metal band,
Yeah.
right? My stepdad and my mum, they loved each other so much, right? But my God, they had some funny, funny relationship. I won't go into that, but
No worries.
it was growing up and that, and yeah, it was a struggle. And then my mum, she passed away when I was 18. And she passed away due to she was an alcoholic, so she had a lot of liver damage. And she passed away eventually. She was ill for years and years and years, and I remember the doctors coming round, and saying, "Oh, she's going to be dead in the next 2 days," and then she lasted 2.5 weeks after that, and then passed away in her sleep. So at least that's all right.
Oh
Uh,
no.
and then yeah, so that was a big, obviously a big thing. And like I said earlier on, mine and Mark's friend, like Giorgio Music, had died. That's a year before that, and then my grandfather died
Oh.
a year after that.
Hmm.
So in these kind of 3 years, I had three kind of deaths that were very close to me.
Right.
And I found it hard to deal with. I'm not going to lie, I did find it hard at that
Yeah.
age. But at the same time, it kind of led me to go on my own path and realize that, oh, well, my mum always told me to pursue my music. So that's what I've always done, And then it come to, I've worked as a sound engineer, I worked in live events, as crewing, I worked as, a lot of different positions. I studied at university, and I had no GCSE, so I had to do an extra year to get onto the course and that. So I done that. I was studying for university. I got my degree, like my BA, in 2019. Um, but during that, I was working at a music studio called Zodiac Studios in London, and the owner there, Steve, is a really good guy, and he looked after me a lot there, and I learned a lot from him and the engineer Salvo. And I went on holiday. I come back and he said to me, "Oh, I'm selling the studio in 2 weeks."
Wow.
So I
Oh,
just been on this holiday to Spain with the fat mum, wife at the time and her family, and um, you know, we come back and he messaged me, "Oh, sorry, I've decided, I need to sell the studio. It's like he wants to just relax for the rest of his life now. He's older and that."
yeah.
And, it was a shock because it's so hard to get a job like that in the industry.
And just to place
And
it, just sorry, Jack, just to place it, where was that in relation to your mum's death, your friend, your granddad? What was the timing between those
so
things?
that, oh God, I think started working there when I was 20 years old. So it was after all of that, it was
So
after that. So I
couple
was
of
probably
years,
about
for you?
Yeah, I'd say about 2 years after that happened. Yeah,
So
and
just to pause there for a moment.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
So
Jack.
there's
I do this. I do this. I do this at times. So
no, that's
sorry,
fine.
because I'm thinking of people watching as well, just to give them a pause for a moment. Because when you live life,
Yeah,
you're in that experience, and you get used to those things happening. But I'm just thinking, as much as you can remember, you've just had you're a couple of years after some major events in your life, and now you've come back from
yeah.
holiday, so everything's looking good. You've gone away and had a great holiday, and now you've come back and found out what you found out. Can you remember as much as you can? How did you feel at that time?
Oh man, I was like, I was gutted. When I
Mm,
say gutted, like, I was upset. Really upset. And I don't blame Steve. He's got to do
no,
his own things in life. He's had to do. He obviously wants to just relax for the rest of his life, take it easy, which is fine. But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, I've spent all this time, like, working here and thought I was in the industry, and then suddenly you're back at
boom.
pretty much rock bottom,
Yeah.
and then it all starts. Then it started getting a bit depressed again, and
Mm,
thinking, oh crap, maybe I'm destined for nothing in life. And then,
mm, mm.
I spend a little time like I'd say like I don't know, I spent probably a couple of months feeling a bit down, and then I was like, no, like I'm gonna turn this around, and I got a message from someone that used to come in and record there, just asking me if I can still record them. And I messaged the new owner, and I didn't realize, but Steve had kindly enough spoke to the new owner and told him that he's still got to rent it out to me at a discounted price. And that was
Wow.
part of the deal for um, selling the studio to this guy, right? So, because Steve knew I still wanted to obviously work in the music industry, but I had no one really. And then
Mm.
this guy, his name was GD Vocals. He was a rapper, and he used to work for me once a week for like maybe 3 hours. And that was it. That's all I had for about 6 months.
Wow. Oh wow.
But
Oh wow.
it,
That's not an easy life to lead then. Wow. Wow.
no, 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 honestly. But I would go and treat him like royalty.
No.
He was the one guy, and I thought, no, I'm going to give this my all. And I'm just going to make sure that he stays with me until I can manage to start building up my clientele. And everything he wanted, I'd be there. Everything he asked, I'd do, And yeah. And then eventually I started getting, another person, and then another person, and then, another person. And it started building up very slowly at first because, again, I didn't have any credits to show people my work at first. So,
So had you at this moment, Jack, had you actually effectively set up your own company at this stage, or was it?
no, no, no,
No, okay, so you were kind of freelance.
no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, I'm just kind of winging it. And yeah, eventually, yeah, I did end up setting up my own company.
Yeah.
Um, but at that time, I was literally just going up there and recording him. He would pay for the studio. I'd get the bus up to Greenwich, where it was at the time, and yeah, just record him for a few hours and then come home, and then I just sit there working on it. And even then, once I mixed it and finished and sent it to him, and he was happy with it all, I'd still go back and just mix it a different way, or
Mm,
do different edits to it to just
mm,
build up experience and stuff.
mm, mm.
And then like I said, another person come in, another person. Eventually you do build it up. It takes a long time. And then once I started having some good of good portfolio, I could send it to people that I wanted to work with. And then that's kind of when um Giorgio Music came back into my life at around that point. So I'd had a child at this point. So my son was born, and we were living we were living with my parents-in-law for about the first year
Mhm.
of his life, and then we were on the social housing, and they had moved us to a flat in Bromley, like temporary accommodation flat, and yeah, I had my computer and a little interface and a microphone and some speakers, like just a very basic setup at the time, and yeah, that Giorgio came round just to make me catch up and that. Yeah, and then that's when that how thing happened. He saw the setup. I was like, I'm a rapper. I was like, oh, all right, let's record something.
Wow.
And
And
then,
where was that in relation to the studio you were in Greenwich? So where you were now?
okay, so yeah, that was in Bromley. So that was still, I was still bouncing between the two. But the
Got you.
thing is, at that time in my career, obviously I was freelance and a lot of people I'm working with didn't have much money. So they couldn't afford to rent a proper studio out,
Mm-hmm.
So we'd just come to my bedroom and do the best we could there, which, and it ended up getting better and better and better. But, you know, the first single or demo we did with Georgia was a song called Healing, right? And yeah, it done really well. Like, I'm sure you can go on YouTube and whatever, Spotify, wherever it is, and check it out. And well, yeah, we ended up just doing a song kind of every 6 months or something with him. And then I had GD vocals and another guy called Clinton. And, I was building it up very slowly. And then there was a band called Trigger Trap who are no longer together. But yeah, I was working with them for a while. And then I got a job in the Churchill Theatre in Bromley as well. So that was just as a technician there. And then I worked in live events at the same time. Worked on some, that was just doing crewing though. So I needed some more income. Yeah, I worked on some great shows there, like with the crewing, like Alice Cooper and
Oh
Megadeth
wow.
and Swansea, like some really good, yeah,
I,
some
I've
really good
got
shows.
I've got a really, really good creative friend who I've been doing quite a lot of writing with, and he's a massive Alice Cooper aficionado. And
Oh
I
wow.
think I must share this with him. Graham.
Yeah.
Graham, his name is Mr. Kite, Mr. Kite. And I must give a shout out to him because I've learnt a few things about Alice Cooper from him and the shows and everything. So massive, massive.
Yeah, yeah, I love his shows, honestly. I went last Monday, on Monday actually, last Monday. Yeah, I went to his show last Monday, but yeah, that was a good gig. Like, on that gig, it was Stone Free Festival at the O2 Arena in London, and I think it was like Alice Cooper, Marillion, and Megadeth. They were like the bands playing, and they have like a big vinyl sale and all music sale there. It's like a whole couple of days there, like thing and bands playing and stuff. And but yeah, and we are bringing in like he has a big guillotine that like chops off
Mm,
his head on
mm.
stage, and we're bringing that in. And I just said to the production manager, I was like, "Oh, can I get a picture in this guillotine?" And he was like, "All right, quickly then." So I got a picture in it. And then my friend asked, and he was like, "No, we've got to get on with the show now." So I was the only person out of about
Wow.
300
Have,
people to
have,
get a
have,
picture.
have you still got it? Have you still got the
Yeah,
picture?
yeah,
Could you
yeah,
send it to me, please?
yeah.
Because I want to put that here now. I want to superimpose that into that's brilliant. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. I'll pop that in here because I think that's amazing. So
yeah,
we're not
yeah.
we're not going to go into because I know you moved around quite a bit.
That's
You
right.
mentioned about social housing earlier. So we're
Yeah,
not necessarily going to go into that, but you had something that happened to you that meant your movement stopped
yes,
for a period of time, you being mobile effectively. Could you just briefly share that with us, please, Jack?
yeah, yeah. So, I'd moved around probably God 11 times in about 2.5 or 3 years or something, and I ended up back at my father-in-law's in Bromley, and just because we decided to move up north, it didn't work out, and then we moved back. Long story, but you
That's
know,
all right.
um,
That's all right.
during that time, obviously, there was this whole pandemic thing about to happen. Like they were about to stop everyone seeing each other. Now, I went to see my friend probably 2 days before the official lockdowns were starting, right? And because I thought, I don't know when I'm next going to see you. And then when I was went round there, he was like, he had a bit of back pain and a cough, and he was a bit unwell, but didn't think anything of it. And then yeah, so I just go home, and then he calls me up a few days later, and he's in the hospital, right? And he's like, "Oh, I have pneumonia on both my lungs. Like, I can't breathe. Like, they're just draining it and giving me X-rays and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, shit, that's really bad." Like, but
Mm.
and I didn't think anything of it. And then about a week after that, like, I went upstairs to go to bed, and I was literally just getting changed into like my nightwear, and I just had like this mad panic attack. Like my whole body was like, my heart was like palpitating. I thought like it's weird to explain to someone, but like
Mm.
I literally thought I was about to die. Like I felt like I was out of my own body. Like like a panic attack. Really, you don't feel like you're in
Mm.
your body. You feel like you're watching yourself from the outside. Like heart's beating. You just like shake. I was like shaking, and the only thing I could do was I literally run down the stairs into the garden where my wife was. And I just like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I don't know what's happening. I think I'm gonna die. Like, and I was shaking, like trembling, sweating. And she's like trying to calm me down. And that night, and for about God, the next few nights, it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I couldn't sleep because every time I fell asleep, like I'd wake up 2 minutes later, like with severe pains in my body. And then eventually it got to a point when I couldn't walk. Like if I literally stood up, I'd fall straight down again. Right. And I couldn't walk for 2 weeks properly. Like, and like I said, literally I would get up and just fall straight down again.
Wow. Your legs would
And
just give way. Your legs would just give
yeah,
way. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like I had no strength in my legs. I couldn't and had this like incredible pain in my lungs, and the thing was I didn't want to go to the hospital because all you was hearing on the news and social media and that was
Yeah.
about how many people were dying in the hospitals.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like terrified to go to the hospital. I was like, no. But then I started developing this like weird rash up my body, right? And it was like I don't know, like the color of this guitar, really like tan skin color,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was like growing up, and it kept getting closer and closer to like my face, really. And it was like I was getting quite worried because obviously I couldn't really breathe properly. I felt like someone had stabbed me in the lung or something. I had this rash up me.
God.
I was having panic attacks like multiple times a day. Um, by this time, this was a couple of weeks later, I could just about walk. Like I'd walk from my front room to my kitchen, and then I'd have to go to sleep for a few hours because of how much it took out of me. And eventually, like, I ended up saying, "All right, take me to the hospital." This was to my father-in-law.
Mm.
And we drove from his house to Farnborough Hospital in Bromley, which is the other side of Bromley.
Mm.
And I just had a panic attack. I was like, I can't go in, can't go in. And like, literally started crying in the car. So he drove me to like this country park, which was nearby. And we just sat down for a bit. And he was like, you need to do this. Like, spoke to me about it. And then we ended up leaving the country park, going into the hospital, and there was like a big tent up at the time. They had these massive
Mm.
marquees all
Mm.
over the place,
Mm.
and I knew someone that worked in the hospital, and they were saying, they're just telling these horror stories, and I was like, don't tell me that, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Bad enough as it is anyway. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, God.
they're like, yeah, all the COVID people have to go in that way, and you have to
Yeah.
wait in this isolated room. So I got made to wait in this isolated room for like 2 hours, and they put like ECGs on me, run blood tests. Now the ECGs, obviously, are coming back a bit like abnormal, like rapid heart rate, but not like heart attack, which
Mm.
is,
Mm.
one worry less in my mind.
Mm.
And then, but the rash was like, it turns out that I'd had a sepsis, right? And yeah, my kidneys were literally failing. They weren't functioning properly. My livers weren't functioning properly. And obviously, sepsis causes rashes anyway. And they were saying where whatever my stuff wasn't being filtered properly, my skin was turning this weird color. Like so, they gave me IV antibiotics. They gave me obviously antibiotics to take home, antifungal, and then just really strong painkillers. And but every night I was still like, weird, horrible to say, but I was soaked in sweat, like, and I
Mm,
was waking up in
mm.
so much pain, and yeah, this has been going on for quite a while, and then probably 2 weeks after taking the antifungal and antibiotics, the rash went down, and I was slowly getting better. When I say slowly, I mean it was a very slow process. Like it took me about nearly a year, probably 9 months to be able to walk like round the shops or something.
Did you find it? Because it sounds like it from what you're saying. It must have been in that progress of walking again. You mentioned earlier on that just that going from one room to another was exhausting. So it must have been
Yeah.
exhausting as you were getting back on the move again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It
yeah.
was like I was probably sleeping like, I don't know, 15, 16, 18 hours a day at the time. And,
Wow.
you know, and, but then it got to a point, I was like, no, I've got to push myself a little bit. And I didn't do it much, I literally would say, right, today I'm going to walk around the block
Mm,
and come back. And then I'd do that for like a week. And then I'd be like, right, so today I'm going to walk 2 blocks or something. And
mm,
then
mm.
come back. And then, um, yeah, when everyone was kind of allowed to meet, like, because I think they made this rule you can meet in groups of like two or three or
Mm.
something. So I met my dad at the roundabout, which is at Sundridge Park. It's probably about half a mile away. And I just remember sitting there, and all I could think was, like, I was so dizzy all the time, like, and all I could think was, I just want to go home. Like, and obviously everyone's getting a bit worried about me. So I go back to the hospital again, and they refer me to neurologists, physiotherapists, and pain specialists. Right. So, um, but during this time, I've actually had to go back on the council because I couldn't go back to live events or sound teching because one, they weren't running really, but even when they started getting back into it, I wouldn't have been able to do the work. So I had literally no income. Um, people weren't really doing as much music then, like, and it's a
Yeah,
weird time. So I went back to the council and they moved us out to Kent, right? And I say that's really when I started getting better, was because I had to do everything myself, well, with my wife and my son at the time. And I just start going shopping, just small shopping, like, get like something to eat for the day and come back. And then I build it up, saw a neurologist, and oh, they've done all these funky tests on me. And what it was, I've ended up having damage to my nervous system in my back, which is L2 to L5, and my vestibular system, which is there, which is why I'm always dizzy every day.
right.
Then they diagnosed me with a chronic case of vestibular migraine. I suffered from migraines when I was a kid, but whatever this illness was, COVID or whatever, it made it all a lot worse. Right. And so yeah, neurology ended up giving me preventative tablets, um, physiotherapy, obviously done their thing, acupuncture, whatever they do, all that, and sent me to pain clinic. Pain give me 2 operations, steroid injections in the back. They put these electrodes in you and try and like zap your nerves.
J
But
j
during this time,
yeah, I've just got to say,
I
Jack, that,
was,
that you and I have
yeah,
communicated.
yeah,
We've communicated prior to this recorded discussion to share with others, and
yeah,
I knew some of what you've just shared, but I didn't know as much as what you've just
yeah,
shared. So I think that's really important to acknowledge that for people listening. I'm hearing this as other people are hearing this. And you remember earlier on today, I actually dropped you a voice note and I said, we're going to be doing other episodes of this because I think there's more. And I'll tell you where I want to leave now, for now,
yeah,
because this is part one, because that's so incredibly inspirational to be doing what you're doing now and helping people as you are doing now. and how you've built up what you're doing now with everything you've just shared. Um, it's a reminder. It's a reminder, and that's such an encouragement for others, Jack. So I want to conclude, if we can, in this part one,
Yeah.
part one, because there's going to be more. I know that. I'd like you to briefly say how music has moved you. How has music helped you to get
Yeah.
through the things you've shared to where you are now? And also, where can people find you? So, how has
Sure.
music
So
moved you, and how can people find you?
yeah, so I think like, after during all that I was taking on sessions, very small session, and I built it up, right? Because it was kind of like an outlet for me where, I could produce what I was feeling in a way.
Mm,
And it's
mm.
only since I was in a way that close to dying that I was like, all right, I need to live now. Right, it sounds mad.
I just want to let that sit. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That was incredible. Thank you. Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, yeah. No, honestly, it's true. I need to live now. And I was like, I'm going to make this, I'm going to make this happen. And I've just worked with everyone. Didn't matter whether I liked what they were doing or not. I worked with everyone I could. I went out just meeting people when I could, and when I had the energy. And I was just literally done every type of music. And I found something in their story and what they were doing that I liked. And that would be the piece that I pull out of them and then start producing. Like I am on social media, so I'm mainly active on Facebook. I know it's a bit old, but
No, me
yeah,
too.
I'm active.
You're all right.
I do have Instagram,
Yeah.
TikTok. I've just started videoing, to make a YouTube channel, which is going to be
Excellent.
like teaching people um, not just about production, but about, mentality in the studio. And, I think just what life's like in the studio and working in music, because it's not all glamorous, as much as
Yeah.
it.
Well,
So,
it,
so it's
it's
going to be a lot about teaching people more than,
yeah.
seeing
It's
other
hard
people.
work, isn't it? I thought recently the old adage where people say if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Now, that's true, but another one I've come to the conclusion of, just because you're doing what you love, it doesn't mean it's not work.
Exactly.
It
You
doesn't mean
still
it's
have to.
not effort, and you're a hard-working man.
I think to get to that point of doing what you love for a living, you have to put in more work than you probably ever put in your life. And there's days, there might be weeks when I don't have any jobs, but then there's weeks when I'm absolutely jam packed, and it's like, oh, I just want a break now. But you you take what you got and you make the best of it. And I think having that illness has really pushed me into trying to get other people's stories, like not just coming in and singing or rapping about a load of nonsense. I think actually, getting what it is about them, what's happened in their life, what is their story to tell,
Yeah.
and then bringing that out through music.
Jack, thank you so much. That has been absolutely amazing. And there's a real insight into you, why you do what you do. All of the socials will be there. So people will be able to
Brilliant.
reach out and connect. And I get a strong feeling we're going to be doing something together as well. So I look forward to
100%.
that very much. Thank you so
Thank
much, Jack.
thank you for having me on. And yeah, it's been incredible speaking with you and sharing, sharing a story. And I really like what you're doing with this. So yeah,
Cheers, buddy.
thank you.